This episode of Test Drive is made possible by RateMyEV.com.
There's an old saying, never meet your heroes, whether it's a celebrity that you idolized as a child or a car that you had pinned up on your wall when you were a kid. They say that once you finally get the chance to meet that person or drive that vehicle, it'll be nothing but a disappointment. And I've heard plenty of stories about that. But today, friends, I get to finally drive my absolute hero. The car I had on my wall growing up, the one that I dreamt about even to this day of owning. The Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. This has been a vehicle that I have dreamt about ever since I first saw Top Gear when I was in my early teenage years. I knew for sure I needed to drive this. I wanted to own one so badly, whether it was a 1990s model, a 2000s, or even a new one if I ever win the lottery and be able to afford something that costs almost as much as my house. Now, we're doing two different videos on this. Today, you get to join me as I experience this vehicle for the very first time. I'm not going to be talking about numbers. I'm not going to be talking about data, anything like that. You're literally going to be joining me as I live my childhood dream, as I explore and drive home with the Mercedes G580. Let's get started. Now, I'm breaking my number one rule when it comes to filming episodes of Test Drive. I'm wearing shorts, but today's kind of a special day because, like I said, we're not doing a review. This isn't like an official regular episode of Test Drive Spotlight. This is just fun, man. This is you getting to enjoy this as much as I do because this is a vehicle that very few people can ever experience. The price on this thing with the matte paint, the Edition 1, all of that, all of the bells and whistles to make this vehicle what it is, it's about $247,000 Canadian. And I configured a G63, the AMG spec, kind of similar. You know, you're not going to get exactly the same thing. That was north of $300,000 Canadian, plus luxury tax, plus taxes, plus fees. You're looking at like a $7,200 a month payment if you wanted to lease one of these. But yeah, this has really been my dream. I mean, there's two cars actually that were on my wall. A Dodge Viper, and I know I'm never going to drive that, and I don't want to, because I know that's a bad experience. But the G-Wagon, this has always been for me the sign of wealth, of excess wealth, of making it, of just, you know, one of those vehicles that when you see one, it just makes you go, G-Wagon, right? Obviously, it's only going to do that, but there's only like three cars that do that. A brand new Escalade, a long wheelbase, full-size Range Rover, and a G-Wagon. So this is going to be a good couple days. I only have it for the weekend, but man, I mean, look at this. Matte white with the black trim, little blue stripe. Looks like a Stormtrooper. Now, I thought I was going to have the matte blue one, but I'm kind of digging this white. So here's what we're going to do. Like I said, this is a very informal video. This is me being able to live my life through this vehicle, live my wildest dreams of driving this car. So we're going to go on the road now. I'm going to be driving back home with it. Car is pretty much fully charged up. This is fully electric, and you're just going to experience it. I did drive it from across the street to here. My original intention was like literally never being able to drive it and then showing you that. But full disclosure, I've driven it 100 meters. But now we're going to drive it for real, and you're going to join me. Let's go. All right. I mean, I'm like pinching myself. I really cannot believe after so long I get to drive my dream car. I mean, this is like an experience. I've probably sat in a G-Wagon twice, one at the dealership, probably one at an auto show, right? I honestly never thought that I would ever get the experience to drive a G-Wagon. I was so close. Back in Montreal, they did have one on the press fleet, and I had missed out because it's, you know, one of those vehicles, obviously, that, like, everybody wants to do, right? So it was one of those things that, like, you know, can you get it? Probably not. And I never did. So I missed out. And then I figured that was it. Like, you know, they're not necessarily going to put one out on the fleet here. Then I heard there was, and I needed it. But, you know, with F1, vehicles were sent out there to Montreal. Then, you know, it's like a short booking. Wasn't probably going to get it. I was told maybe September. And I thought, well, you know, I'll forget about it. But then I got the call. once you get the call, yeah, you're not going to say no to it. So, I mean, this has worked out. But first impressions, absolutely no disappointment. I mean, I sit up high. It was actually kind of funny putting the cameras together. The camera angle here isn't quite what we would normally do for test drive. I mean, it's kind of similar to driving. I don't want to say it, but like a Wrangler, right? I hate to compare it, but obviously because the front windshield is pretty much at a 90-degree angle. It's like a Bronco, it's like a Wrangler, it's like a Defender, right? You got to put the camera somewhere. So I think it's at a pretty good angle. But man, this is such a beautiful spec. I'm not a big fan of white, but I'm digging it. Like digging it in the white. I mean, it's pretty classic, especially with those black lines and trim around the exterior. You can't go wrong. And there's I figured there's 39 or 41 different. First of all, there's 41 different manufacturer colors that you can go with. Manufacturer, if you don't know, is the exclusive sort of bespoke department now of Mercedes. So that's all of their upscale stuff. Used to be Designo, and now it's really moved into this manufacturer. So if you want to get this paint job, for example, I'd have to give you the exact name on it, but it's going to be Snow White Magno manufacturer, right? Because it's a Magno is now their matte, and then manufacturer because it's exclusive. Interior here, gray and black, I like it, but then the carbon weave, which is probably really expensive, is blue. Got little blue speckles in there because it is a fully electric vehicle. And I mean, you can almost, I have nothing to compare it to because I've never had this experience before, but I mean, it probably feels like what a regular G550 would feel like in terms of having that big V8 engine under the hood, but it's what I would want. And I mean, that's always been the thing, right? As far as I'm concerned, you let me know what your thoughts are. But when it comes to a G-Wagon, that is truly the pinnacle of the automotive ball-in food chain, right? You've got S-Class, which the whole reason why I bought an S-Class is because I liked it. But, I knew that you're up there in the food chain. Really the only vehicle, the Mercedes, regular lineup of vehicles that surpasses that is a G-Wagon. And then, kind of within the G-Wagon family, obviously, if you've got an AMG and whatnot, you've got the better version of it. But regardless, the G-Wagon has always been the pinnacle. So, just having one of them, whether it's a G550 or anything, you're pretty much balling. But for me, I love electrics, right? You know that. If you've watched this show, you know that when it comes to any sort of vehicle, electrification is the way to go for me. So the fact that this is fully electric, I'm at 94% right now with 439 kilometers of range. That's more than enough. I can't imagine that the regular G-Wagon would get more than, say, 450 kilometers to a tank because it's a big V8 engine and you're going to be using it like a big V8 engine. And I'm in sport mode. Actually, am I in sport mode? No, I was in comfort mode. Now we're in sport mode. I do have the sport screen on. But yeah, it's got some fake sounds in there to give you that V8 feel without the V8 consumption. Because I just dropped off the Ford Explorer, completely unrelated vehicle. But that's what I had this week originally. And it cost me probably $85, $90 in gas to go about 400 kilometers. This thing would, to do, about the same, right? 700. It's probably going to cost me $700 in gas. With electricity, this is going to cost me $50, $60 to drive it for the full weekend, which is amazing. Now, like I said, this has been a lifetime coming, right? Top Gear came out in 2002, right? I probably started watching it in 2004. That's when I was first introduced to the trio, to the gang. And from then on, I knew this was the profession for me. I wanted to be just like Jeremy, James, and Richard. And, I've had the pleasure of being in the same room as Richard Hammond. Never actually was able to actually meet him. Never met the other two. But, I've always felt this sort of connection to that show because it was really my introduction to cars. And then it introduced me to something like this, the Mercedes G-Wagon. And I knew when I first saw it, I'm like, that's what I want. This is give me some of that because, it's an experience, right? And I'm going to try my best to see what people are checking us out as we're driving along. But I mean, I feel pretty good. And, space-wise is pretty good too, right? We know I'm a big guy. Yeah, I'm not the ideal person to be getting into any of these vehicles, but space is no problem. In fact, I sit much better in this than some of the other off-road, more purpose-built off-road vehicles. Let's say Land Rover Defender, which is really still my favorite, luxury SUV on the market right now. Something like that, it's very similar in terms of the overall space and feel. So, very comparable in terms of comfort. I'd say the seats on this, though, are way better. Much more comfortable experience. And let's open it up. Man, that thing's fast. Holy cow. That just gets you up to speed, no problem. And then the greatest thing, too, right? Like, let's be honest, most people who are buying a G-Wagon, you're probably on your own, right? It's just you driving it. So, you now have access to the HOV lanes because, at least here in Ontario, even though this thing probably weighs like 15,000 pounds, it's got green plates on it. So, me on my own, no problem. I'm going to be taking the HOV lane. But yeah, wow. Interior here it's so different. Obviously, if you were to park a 1995 Mercedes G-Wagon next to this, you will see the exterior similarities. The size is about the same. The proportions, the major design elements are going to be pretty much the same. But the interior here on this new generation is wildly different from the old ones. And I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. I think that this is probably one of the best interiors that Mercedes has on the market in 2025 because it isn't a tablet screen in the middle. It's using their older UI. And that's great because, who cares, right? I don't want any of this technology when I'm driving a G-Wagon, right? Like, I want to be able to have the controls I need. Boom. Center console here with the touchpad. Very familiar. Nice to have that there. And then I just want a commanding view around me. And I have to say that this is almost like driving in an aquarium because the windows are just enormous. And yeah, I've got a little sunroof. Back in the day when a sunroof was like the feature you could have. Not pano, nothing like that. Yes, sirree. This is living up to my wildest dreams when it came to driving a G-Wagon. Because, it looks so cool, but it drives really well, too. I'm very impressed. And that's the thing, when we talk about the future, right, we've been talking about it for a while now, not just on Test Drive, I think as an industry as a whole. The future everybody was hoping was going to be electric by this point, and there's been a lot of pushback, and that's fine. It's not for everybody. I always say it's a tool in your shed. You might not need that particular tool for that particular job. For me, an electric gets like 99.9% of my day-to-day business done. Outside of that, I could rent a car, or something like this still would work. You've got fast charging. If I wanted to take it on a road trip, I could. But yeah, you're going to be buying the vehicle that makes sense for you. But with the push towards electrification, I think a G-Wagon actually makes the most sense out of all of the electric vehicles Mercedes has come out with. Because outside of the GLB, all the EQs, right? The EQE, EQC, EQS, these are all their own vehicle. And I don't know. For me personally, I don't like any of them. I'm a Mercedes fan, but man, they just, as far as I'm concerned, dropped the ball when it came to the electric approach compared to BMW that took the formula I think is the correct one. Let's take a regular looking car platform and let's make it electric, right? Mercedes has effectively done that with this, which is taking a G-Wagon and made it electric and added 4 electric motors to it. So not only is this the most expensive vehicle I believe that I have featured here on Test Drive, again, $247,000, but it is the most amount of motors in a vehicle at 4 electric motors, 1 on each wheel. Allows you to do the EQ spin, which we'll do probably in our real video. And this makes sense because it looks like a regular G-Wagon, and that's really key, right? The same thing with the GLB electric. James featured it last year, and I've driven the GLB, he's done the GLB. Now you've got the EQB. Kind of looks pretty much like that gas version, which is the way to go. So this certainly makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of the people who are buying a G-Wagon, you're buying the AMG again for that brand, right? You're buying it because within the hierarchy of the G-Wagon, the AMG is the best. So I think in a case like this, I don't see a reason why I wouldn't buy the electric version because it fits in with my lifestyle. And I think a lot of people would appreciate that too, right? Just depends on pricing. Like, yeah, if that really matters, right? You let me know. Like the people who actually buy G-Wagons, I don't think they really care about the price. If it's one of those things, right? If you have to ask how much it is, then you can't afford it. And I asked how much it was because I knew how much I could afford, and I can't afford it. So it's fine. But man, it's not disappointing me in the least. And I've had some pretty miserable cars over the years. There's been some vehicles that I've really had high hopes for. I've driven them, they haven't been that good. And then there's been cars that I haven't really paid too much attention to, and I've driven them and I've absolutely loved them. But the G-Wagon so far, at least within, these 20 minutes that you've been with me, have been exactly what I expected out of it. I mean, I just feel like I'm on top of the world, and I'm loving it. Yeah, there's not much more I can really say. I mean, you're really just here along for the drive. If you're watching this, I appreciate you kind of hanging out with me, right? Because like I said, we're not really talking about specs too much. We're not talking about how it compares. It's just me living and experiencing this vehicle for the first time together. Because, let me know if you've driven one. But I have to suspect that most people who are watching haven't, because it is just so unattainable. Even in the used market. I mean, I was looking just for fun when I got the spec sheet for this, and I was like, okay, I want to just to see how much they've depreciated. They don't. And if you follow G-Wagon pricing, you know that they retain their value so well because this is probably one of, if not the best made Mercedes product that they've had. It's been consistently phenomenal, right? And then because there's been so little change over the decades, you can buy a 1997 and it'll more or less look like a 2007 or a 2017 or a 2025, right? Like they don't change that much with this newest generation, yes, but it doesn't matter, right? It's G-Class. You're buying it because, again, of the prestige, the affluence that you get when you drive a vehicle like this, that people just have to assume that you are very, very famous, because who else can afford it? I can't. This is like a whole house I'm driving right now. Our first house that we sold was less money than this when we bought it. Let's just put it that way. And it wasn't like a little bit less. It was like $60,000 less than this is. And that had like 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a backyard. You don't get that with this. But would I prefer this over a house? That's the question. Obviously, yes. That is I would go with this. You could live out of it, no problem. Let's talk about a little bit of the other experience, right? Because, I'm telling you, it was true. I picked it up. I drove it across the street. I set up to film, and that was my experience. So, coming from that tiny little bit of exposure to it, there's things that come with the G-Wagon that you don't. I mean, you can find out. You're watching a video. I'm going to tell you about it, but like you have to really experience it. Like the doors have this quality to it. It's one of the rare times that I'm going to be telling my family, you have to slam the door, because that's the only way it'll latch. Like if you try to just pull it closed, there's not enough force there because these doors are so well built and the mechanism is so like heavy duty that you really got to slam it. And there's like a click to it, right? It really is unique. Here, listen. That was fun, wasn't it? So, you're getting that experience, right? And that's part of what sells these vehicles is the experience. There is truly nothing else out there. You can argue that something like the Eneos Grenadier is going to be more capable off-road. It's going to be more true to what the old G-Wagons were like. And yeah, that's fair. But the G-Wagon evolves into this status symbol. Yes, it's built tough. It's built to last. It's built for military purposes. Our military here in Canada uses G-Wagons the same way that the U.S. Army used Humvees, right? They went with those larger Humvee spec vehicles. Mercedes provided the vehicles for the Canadian military, and you can see them. There's plenty of times that I'll be driving, especially in the Ottawa area, anywhere along the Highway of Heroes. You'll see there's, obviously a number of Canadian Forces bases along that route, and you'll see from time to time little convoys of military vehicles, and they're all painted like kind of baby barf brown, which all of our vehicles are painted in, but it's a G-Wagon, right? It's a Mercedes G-Wagon that we're using, and they probably they didn't cost $247,000, but those vehicles are probably like 25, 30 years old, and they're still using them because they will last. Those are the vehicles that are going to last into infinity, really. I mean, that's why the prices stay so high. That's why like a 2007 that's why like a 2007 G63 is still over $100,000. I'm pretty sure the one that I was checking, the closest one to where I am out in St. Thomas, was like a 2009 G550, and it was like $67,000 with 250,000 kilometers on it. Like, show me any other vehicle out there that has that high mileage that still commands that high of a price. It's insane. So yeah, but anyway, I don't want to take up your entire day. I'm sure there are a couple of people out there who might appreciate it, but for the most part, this has been thoroughly enjoyable. I am glad that you have decided to join me as you're, driving along. You kind of have like a passenger view if you were sitting beside me on the top camera, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I mean, we're going to be doing more content on this. This might be the first video that you see, but it should not be the last one, because we'll have a proper review on it. Not that I can compare this to anything. Nobody else really has anything that is comparable in the electric space to this. Even the Escalade IQ being a status vehicle, right, like a halo car, still not quite the same experience. So, there's things to talk about in the full review. We'll go over all the features and everything. So if you're really curious to know what the G-Wagon has to offer, the G580 with EQ technology, because it's not an EQG. Mercedes is just doing something different with this one, but we will go over all of it. So you can check that video out. As always, if you have any questions about this vehicle or anything that we're doing here on Test Drive, I'm more than happy to answer those questions for you. I do try to get back to everybody as quickly as I can, but we're pretty busy here doing a lot of stuff on Test Drive, so it does take a little while, a little bit longer these days than it should, but we will get back to you at some point. But thanks for riding along with me. It's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying it. I will enjoy the next hour and a half before I can get home. I will then enjoy charging it, and then I will enjoy the curious looks that my neighbors give me, because every single week is something different, and this will be really the highlight of everything I've brought home since moving back to Ontario. This really stands out, so it's going to be good. So thanks. I'll catch you later, buddy. See ya.